What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, man. I'm gonna do as a good video came out today from Boxcaster. Definitely check out Boxcaster. Did a great interview with Evander Holyfield. I was actually pointed to it by Blue Blood Sports TV, who did a video on it earlier today as well. I haven't actually had a chance to check out Blue Buds, but I did get a chance to see what the video was that he was referring to, and that was one on Boxcaster. So I'm going to talk about what Evander Holyfield said on that video, and man, it's just so dead on that it's worth going through. And he talks about it. He's talking about promoters. He's talking about the heavyweight championship and the unification of the heavyweight championship. And of course, you know that Evander Holyfield is a Hall of Fame, one of the best heavyweights to ever do it. And, as he said, he believes that he was the best in his era of heavyweights. And I think that the record bears that out. He had one loss and a draw to Lennox Lewis, but he beat Riddick Bowe. He also beat Mike Tyson, and he's the one heavyweight of that group of heavyweights: Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis, and Evander Holyfield that fought every one of them. And he talked about how he feels like Anthony Joshua doesn't want to fight with Deontay Wilder, and he specifically says something, man, and you could tell that he was alluding to it the whole time because he knew that the question was coming up from Boxcaster. He specifically said something like something to this effect. Yeah, you can put yourself in a situation where you don't have to fight the other guy that has the belt, but at some point in time, you got to show some heart. And that was a direct shot at Anthony Joshua. He's like, look, man, if you got another heavyweight out there, everybody needs to know who the heavyweight champion is. And the thing was, he talked about it from the viewpoint of a heavyweight champion and somebody that was unified. And he did criticize Riddick Bowe, and he did criticize Lennox Lewis as people who didn't face their mandatory or drop belts because they didn't face the people they're supposed to. But the unification of it, and talking specifically about the unification, he said, look, that's why he made all the money. And he said, look, man, I made guaranteed $20 million a fight. And I'm pretty sure Evander Holyfield made a guaranteed $20 million a fight for, what was that, back 15 years ago? He was making $20 million a fight, guaranteed $20 million a fight, and cuts a pay-per-view after that. So when we're talking about Evander Holyfield, you're talking about somebody was making more 15 years ago than any heavyweight is making right now, including Anthony Joshua. And he said that the reason that he did it was because he unified the belts. And he's like, nobody else could. All the money came to him because you could never look and say, who the other people, who was the other champion. And he said, as long as there's another champion out there, you can say, yeah, you're a champion, but you're not the champion. And that's what unification of the heavyweight division is about. And I agree 100% with him. He said, yeah, there is something about it. And he even talked about promoters and was saying, look, when you're talking about, the legacy and all that, you got a lot of promoters that don't want their fighter to face other people because they figure, hey, if their fighter loses, they lose. And the promoter is only as good as the fighter that he's representing. And I've said that a bunch of times, and I'm so glad to hear that from Evander Holyfield's mouth because I believe that's the truth. But to hear that out of the mouth of somebody that you guys can't discredit. And I'm talking specifically to you, AJ Cats, that keep listening to the videos and keep on leaving comments. I know I'm preaching to the choir. For people that already know what the deal is. But for you specific people, this is Evander Holyfield. Anthony Joshua is not on the level of an Evander Holyfield yet. And if he doesn't face Deontay Wilder and beat Deontay Wilder, he won't be that. Because he won't be an undisputed champion. And actually, he would have to even take a step further and beat Tyson Fury. Because Tyson Fury, every belt that Anthony Joshua holds is Tyson Fury's belts. And as long as there are other people, other heavyweights that other people want to talk about, that other heavyweights believe in, that means that there's going to be a division of the pot, of the boxing pot, right? And he talked about not just the money, but just legacy and the good of the and the overall health of the sport. For the people that talk about how, certain promoters from the UK are coming over and they're trying to help boxing, they're trying to save boxing. You don't save boxing by going out of your way to make sure that the best fights don't happen. That seems like you're trying to water down boxing. The more belts that there are, the more watered down boxing is. The more champions there are in a given division, the more watered down boxing is. Because you can never say who the champion is. And even if you look at Deontay Wilder, if Deontay Wilder was the one that I believed was not trying to make a fight with Anthony Joshua, then I would say, okay, Deontay Wilder needs to try to make that fight, right? But it just so happens that that's not the case. At least that's not the case the way that I see it, and I think the way that any reasonable person would see it, including Evander Holyfield. Because Evander Holyfield said this guy doesn't want to fight. Flat out. He said Anthony Joshua, and he had this look, not quite disgust, but like if he wasn't in front of a camera, he might have been even more bold in the statement. He's like, look, man, this guy doesn't want to fight. You can tell the way that Lennox Lewis is going about it. Lennox Lewis is being a little bit more polite about it. But Lennox Lewis is pretty much like, man, Anthony Joshua got to stop talking and make the fight. He needs to make the fight, and he needs to go to the United States to do it. Now, Mike Tyson's off on his whatever he's on. That's Mike Tyson. But I bet you if you press Mike Tyson would, if he was honest, which I don't think Mike Tyson's being because he's got a little bit of a personal thing with Deontay Wilder. Mike Tyson knows that unification of the heavyweight division is what makes the heavyweight champion. That's what happened that's what pushed Mike Tyson over the edge and made Mike Tyson and made the sport of boxing extremely, extremely healthy when Mike Tyson was coming up after Larry Holmes declined, and Ali and Larry Holmes and those guys kind of faded away, at the 1970s heavyweights. Because the prime of Mike Tyson was early to mid 80s heavyweight. But then by the time he got around to the 90s and Evander Holyfield and those guys started coming, he was a big name in the division. But, the kings of the heavyweight division was Evander Holyfield after Evander Holyfield knocked him off. And then for a short period of time became Lennox Lewis. Once Lennox Lewis had got that second victory over Lennox Lewis, which I honestly, man, I've always believed was, a closer fight than people say. At least I thought the first and the second fight were close fights, but it is what it is, man. And that's what I like to see in the heavyweight division. And it is good to see. If the media is not going to do it, that's one thing, because, hey, man, they're getting paid. I did a video earlier today, man. The promoters is only as good as the fighter that they have. And if the fighter ain't good enough to beat everybody, then he's going to try to protect the fighter and try to create an aura of greatness around him instead of, just locking it down and making sure that this guy can, beat everybody. When Anthony Joshua's promoter said that he had a 10-fight plan or 8-fight plan, when he's talking about 8, he's talking about 8, 10 different guys over a course of years. He's talking about carefully guiding Anthony Joshua's career to make sure that he balances how good Anthony Joshua can look in the ring, but at the same time create some sense of danger for Anthony Joshua. But the time is running out, and it's time to make that fight. But that's what's in Eddie Hearn's interest. But what Evander Holyfield said was, look, man, at a certain point in time, the fighter has to do it. The fighter has to make the decision. The fighter has to step up and say that he wants to do it. And yeah, Anthony Joshua can continue to fight guys like he can fight Pulev, he can fight a Povetkin, he can fight a Dillian White, he can even fight a Jarrell Big Baby Miller. But that's still But that, he has the ability to do those things because you got people in the UK that are going to fork the money out for it. But what about his heart? Doesn't he have to step up and show heart and do like Kell Brooks did? Kell Brooks showed heart, saying, "No, I'm going to fight. I'm fighting Errol Spence Jr." They didn't want the man. Come on, man. Any people with two eyes could see what was about to happen to Kell Brook. And I believe that Kell Brook knew what was about to happen to Kell Brook too, or at least had a sense that could be the case. And he still stepped up and did it. Guys like, and I repeat it over and over again, guys like Floyd Patterson did it. These guys got in the ring with people, man. For not just because of the money, but when you retired, listen to if you listen to that interview with Evander Holyfield, you could tell that Evander Holyfield, years after being retired, decade off of his prime, had pride in his voice about what he did. And he said, "Look, ain't nobody say anything to me because I never broke a rule. I fought everybody. If somebody else had the belt, it was going to be me or it was going to be them. And they were going to beat me. I was going to beat them. But someone was going to be the champion." And he even related it to the money from a monetary standpoint. Look, as long as you got another heavyweight out there that somebody else wants to see, then look, you're taking up a pool of the money. And I'm going to tell you, for Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder's sitting on a ton of his money. A ton of that money, not his money, a ton of that money. He's sitting on the U.S. market. And Anthony Joshua for sure is never going to get it if he doesn't beat Deontay Wilder. And if Deontay Wilder gets beat first, he's definitely not going to get it because he wasn't the one to do it. And then people are still going to be questioning what he's about. So anyway, it is what it is, man. Shout out to my man. Shout out to the Boxing Caster and definitely Blue Bloods for Sports TV for hipping me to the article. Man, Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis, two grade A top-notch champions who tell it like it is. And I hope, and I think that the reason why they're doing it, man, is that they're now sitting there. These guys are 50-year-old men, who are never going to fight again. They got their bank accounts are nice. They've got their legacy in boxing set, and they're looking back at what boxing's about and saying, "Look, man, for the love of the sport, man, you got to. It's not just about the money. For the love of the sport, Anthony Joshua, you got to show some heart, and you got to face Deontay Wilder." And if Deontay Wilder was doing it, they would say the same thing to Deontay Wilder. But hey, man, promoters aren't going to do that because the promoter, if the promoter doesn't have confidence in the boxing, the promoter's going to try to do what Evander Holyfield said that Riddick Bowe's manager told him. Nah, man, we don't, he didn't want him to take the Lennox Lewis fight. The manager didn't want Riddick Bowe to take the Lennox Lewis fight because the manager didn't think Lennox Lewis could win, that Riddick Bowe could beat Lennox Lewis. And he was trying to hold on. Now, how many losses does Riddick Bowe have? Riddick Bowe has one loss on his record to Evander Holyfield. Who is held in higher esteem? A guy was knocked out, who's got two knockout losses and a draw, right? Or the guy that never been knocked out only has one and ducked him, right? History is kinder to the reign of Lennox Lewis than it was to Riddick Bowe. And and Anthony Joshua eventually, when all the dust settles, he's going to have to sit up there and deal with the fact that he's on record and people believe that he ducked a $50 million fight. He needs to make the fight and make the fight for himself, for boxing, and for himself as much for boxing, man. But anyway, that's Evander Holyfield's take on it. I agree with Evander Holyfield's take. And with that, I'm out. Peace.